Good day everyone. Today we will going to discuss about the gastrointestinal system or the digestive system. So what is digestive system? Digestive system is made up of the digestive tract and the other organs that help the body break down and absorb food. It is a long twisting tube that starts from the mouth and goes through the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and the anus. The digestive system is a system that breaks down food into nutrients such as the carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. They can then be absorbed into the bloodstream so the body can use them for energy, growth, and repair. Unused materials are discarded as feces. The digestive system prepares food for the use of the cells through 5 basic activities. The first one is ingestion, or simply the taking of food into the body. The second one is the peristalsis, or the physical movement or pushing of food along the digestive tract. Third is the digestion, or the breakdown of food by both mechanical and chemical mechanisms. Fourth is the absorption, or the passage of digestive food from the digestive tract into the cardiovascular and lymphatic systems for distribution to the body cells. Lastly, the defecation, or the elimination from the body of those substances that are indigestible and cannot be absorbed by the body. As we can see in the diagram, the digestive tract includes the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and the anus, while the accessory organs of the tract include the teeth, tongue, salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and the pancreas. Other terms used frequently to refer as the digestive tube running from the mouth to the anus are the digestive tract and the gastrointestinal tract, or the GI tract for short. Gastro or gastric refers to the stomach, its action, or its product. Alimentary means to nourish. Alimentary tract is the other term referring to the digestive tract. The walls of the alimentary canal from the esophagus to the anal canal have the same arrangement of tissue layers. These layers referred to as coats or tunics. There are 4 layers of the alimentary canal. The first one is the tunica mucosa, or it is the innermost lining of the canal and consists of the mucous membrane attached to a thin layer of visceral muscle. There are 3 layers that make up the mucous membrane. The first one is the epithelial tissue layer, which is in direct contact with the contents of the canal. The second one is the lamina propria. It is the underlying layer of loose connective. The third one is the muscularis mucosa. It is the epithelial layer, functions in the protection, secretion of enzymes and mucus, and absorption of nutrients. Lamina propria supports the epithelium, binds it with the muscularis mucosa, and provides it with the lymph and blood supply. The tunica mucosa of the small intestine has another special layer, the muscularis mucosa, made of muscle fibers that produce folds to tremendously increase the digestive system and absorptive area of the small intestine. The second one is the tunica submucosa, consists of loose connective tissue that binds the tunica mucosa and the next layer of the tunica muscularis. The third one is the tunica muscularis of the mouth, pharynx, and the first part of the esophagus consists of the skeletal muscle that allows the voluntary act of swallowing. The rest of the tract consists of the smooth muscle in an inner circular layer and outer longitudinal layer of fibers. Involuntary contractions of these muscle fibers breaks down food through the canal. The last layer is the tunica serosa. It is the outermost layer. It consists of the serous membrane made up of connective and epithelial tissues. It is also known as the visceral peritoneum. This layer covers organs and has large folds that weave in between the organs, thus binding the organs to each other and the walls of the cavity. Let us now proceed to the parts and functions of the digestive system. Let us start with the mouth or the oral cavity. The mouth or oral cavity can be also called as the buccal cavity. Its sides are formed by the cheeks. The roofs consist of the hard and smooth palates, and its floor is formed by the tongue. Lips are fleshy folds that surround the opening or orifice of the mouth. The oral cavity is covered by skin, and on the inside is the mucous membrane. During the chewing of the food, the lips and the cheeks help keep the food between the upper and lower teeth. They also assist in speech. The hard bony palate forms the anterior part of the roof of the mouth. The smooth palate forms the posterior portion of the roof of the mouth. Hanging from its posterior border is a cone-shaped muscular structure called ovula, which functions in the swallowing process and prevents the food from backing up in the nasal area. The tongue and its associated muscles form the floor of the oral cavity. It consists of a skeletal muscle covered with mucous membrane. Lingual frenulum divided the tongue into symmetrical halves by the septum. The tongue is attached and supported by the hyoid bone. There are two types of skeletal muscle found in the tongue. First one is the extrinsic muscle. It originated outside the tongue and it inserts into it, moving the tongue from side to side and in and out to manipulate the food. The second muscle is the intrinsic muscle, originate and insert within the tongue, altering the size and shape of the tongue for speech and swallowing. The filiform papillae, found at the front of the tongue, and are rough and are important in licking. The second one is the fungiform papillae and the circumvallate papillae, found toward the back of the tongue. All contain the taste buds. After the mouth, let us now discuss the salivary glands. The major portion of the saliva is secreted by the large salivary glands. The mucous membrane lining of the mouth contains many small glands called the buccal glands, which secrete small amounts of saliva. The large salivary glands are found outside the oral cavity and pour into the secretion into ducts that empty into the mouth. The three pairs of salivary glands are the parotid gland and the submandibular or the submaxillary gland and the sublingual gland. Saliva consists of 99.5% of water, which provides a medium for dissolving food. The remaining 0.5% consists of the following solutes: chlorides that activates the saliva enzyme amylase. Amylase initiates the breakdown of complex carbohydrates like starch, glycogen, into simple sugars. Bicarbonates and phosphates, which are buffer chemicals, keep the saliva at a slightly acidic pH of 6.35 and 6.85. Urea and uric acid are waste products. Mucin form mucus to lubricate the food. And the enzyme lysosome destroys bacteria, thus protecting the mucous membrane from infection and teeth from possible decay. So in short, the saliva helps in the digestion of the food by softening it. Let us now discuss one of the accessory organs of the digestive system, which is the teeth. The teeth, also known as the dentes, are located in the sockets of the alveolar processes of the mandible and the maxillae bones. The teeth break up the food by chewing. Chewing is called mastication. So chewing is the first process of digestion. There are 20 temporary or deciduous teeth that form in infants between the ages of 6 to 2 years old. By the age of 13, they will develop 32 permanent teeth to replace the deciduous ones. The 8 front teeth are called the incisors and are also used to cut the food. The 4 canine teeth used to tear food because they have 1 cups. They also called cuspids. The molar teeth grind the food, and there are 2 kinds of the molar teeth. The first one is the bicupids, or the 8 premolars have 2 cups or projection, and the tricuspids that have 12 molars. The alveolar processes are covered by the gums or the gingivae that extends slightly into each socket. The sockets are lined by the periodontal ligament that anchors the teeth in position and acts as a shock absorber to soften the forces creating during chewing. A tooth can be divided into 3 principal portions. The first one is the crown. It is the portion above level of the gums and is covered with enamel. This hard enamel is the hardest substance in the body that protects the tooth from wear or acids. The second one is the cervix or the neck of the teeth. It is the constricted junction between the crown and the root. The third one is the root, and it consists of 1, 2, or 3 projections embedded in the socket. Teeth are made up of dentin, a bone-like substance that encloses the pulp cavity in the crown. Let us now proceed to the pharynx. The pharynx is a part of both the digestive and respiratory system. Its function in the digestive system is to begin the process of swallowing. Swallowing moves the food from the mouth to the stomach. Swallowing begins when the tongue, with the teeth and saliva, forms a soft mass called the food bolus. Food is forced to the back of the mouth cavity and into the oropharynx. This is the voluntary stage of swallowing. Next is the involuntary stage begins. First, the respiratory passages close and breathing is temporarily interrupted. The food bolus stimulates oropharyngeal receptors that sends impulses to the brain. This causes the soft palate and the uvula to move upward and close off the nasopharynx. Now the larynx is pulled forward and upward under the tongue where it meets the epiglottis and seals off the glottis, the common opening into the trachea. The food bolus passes through the laryngopharynx and enters the esophagus in about 1 second. The respiratory passages reopen and breathing resumes. Let us now talk about the esophagus. The esophagus is a collapsible muscular tube that is situated behind the trachea or the windpipe. It is about 10 inches long and begins at the end of the laryngopharynx. It passes through the mediastinum, pierces the diaphragm through an opening called the esophageal hiatus, and ends at the superior portion of the stomach. The functions of the esophagus is to secrete mucus and transport the food to the stomach. It does not produce any digestive enzymes and it does not absorb food. Food is pushed through and it pushed through the esophagus. Food is pushed through to the esophagus by the smooth muscle contractions called the peristalsis, repeated in a wave-like motions that push the food toward the stomach. Now that the food is in the stomach, so a stomach is an enlargement of the gastrointestinal tract. It lies in the upper part of the abdominal cavity, just under the diaphragm muscle. It has the shape of a letter J. When it is empty, it's about the size of a large sausage. However, it can be stretched to accommodate large amounts of food. Parts of the stomach. The first one is the cardia, which surrounds the gastroesophageal sphincter. Next is the fundus. It is the rounded portion above and to the left of the cardia. Below the fundus is the large central portion of the stomach known as the body. It is where the food is stored. Next one is the pylorus or the antrum. It is the narrow inferior region that connects the duodenum of the small intestine via pyloric sphincter. When there is no food in the stomach, the mucosa lies in the large fold called rugae, which are visible with the unaided eye. As the stomach fills, the rugae smooth out and disappear like a accordion when it is extended in the air. The mucosa of the stomach contains many pits of gastric glands that have three kinds of secreting cells. The zymogenic or the chief cells secrete the principal gastric enzymes, pepsinogen. The parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid, which activates the pepsinogen to become pepsin, the enzyme that begins to break down proteins, and the mucous cells, which secrete mucus that protects the stomach from being digested. The secretion of all of these gastric glands collectively are referred to as the gastric juice. The muscularis coat of the stomach has uniquely three, not just two, layers of smooth muscles, an inner oblique, a middle circular, and outer longitudinal. These three layers allows the stomach to contract in variety of ways to break up food into small pieces, churn it, and mix it with the gastric juice. When the stomach is empty, this activity occurs. We experience stomach growling. So, kahit na wala tayong kinakain, patuloy pa rin yung pag-churn or pagpaprocess ng ating stomach. So, sabi nga nila, kailangan nating kumain sa tamang oras. The main chemical activity of the stomach is to begin the digestion of proteins by the enzyme pepsin. The protein components of the stomach cells themselves are protected from being digested by the mucus secreted by the mucous cells. The stomach then empties all its contents into the duodenum of the small intestine approximately 2 to 6 hours after ingestion. Foods high in carbohydrates pass through the stomach first, before their digestion begins in the mouth via the salivary enzyme amylase. Protein foods pass through somewhat more slowly because their digestion begins in the stomach. Foods containing large amount of fats take the longest to pass into the duodenum. The stomach participates in the absorption of some water and salts. Certain drugs such as aspirin and alcohol can also be absorbed in the stomach. The next step is the cell digestion in the small intestine. This process depends on the secretion from intestinal glands and on secretion of the two large accessory glands of the system, the pancreas and the liver and its gallbladder. Let us now proceed to the pancreas. The pancreas is a soft oblong gland about 6 inches long and 1 inch thick. It is found beneath the great curvature of the stomach and is connected by a duct to the duodenum of the small intestine. The pancreas is divided into the head, the part closest to the duodenum, the body, the main part, and the tail. Internally, the pancreas is made up of clusters of glandular epithelial cells. The functions of pancreas are: the acini secretes enzymes that continue the digestion of food in the small intestine, and the alpha beta cells secrete the hormones glucagon and insulins that regulate and control blood sugars. The other accessory organ in the digestive system is the liver. The liver is one of the largest organs of the digestive system. The liver weighs approximately 4 pounds and is divided into two principal lobes, the right lobe and the left lobe, each separated from another by a falciform ligament. The lobes of the liver are made up of numerous functional units called lobules. The functions of the liver are so numerous and important that we cannot survive without it. The gallbladder is also another accessory organ of the digestive system. The gallbladder is a pear-shaped sac about 3 to 4 inches long, located in the depression of the surface of the liver. Its lining is like the stomach. It has the rugae that allow it to expand and fill with stored bile. The gallbladder's function is to store and concentrate the bile produced by the liver lobules until it needed in the small intestine. The bile enters the duodenum through the common bile duct. We are now going to discuss the small intestine, where the major absorption and digestion occurs. It is approximately 21 feet in length and average of 1 inch in diameter. The small intestine is divided into 3 portions. The first is the duodenum, which is the shortest part and is about 10 inches long. The second portion is the jejunum. The jejunum is about 8 feet long and extends to the third part, the ileum, which measures 12 feet and joins the large intestine at the ileocecal valve. Approximately 80% of all absorption of nutrients occurs in the small intestine. These are the functions of the small intestine. The tract is 21 feet long. An even larger surface of absorption of nutrients is provided by the structure of the walls of the tract, which are thrown into the series of folds called the plicae. The mucosa coat is transformed into projection called the villi, which look like the microscopic eyedropper bulbs approximately 0.5 to 1 millimeter long. A tremendous number of villi line the intestine, about 4 to 5 million. This villi vastly increase the surface area of the epithelium for absorption of nutrients. The structure of each villus contains a capillary network where blood picks up nutrients. a venule or a small vein to transport the nutrients, an arteriole or a small artery, and a lacteal of the lymphatic system to pick up fats. In addition, an anterion, the individual epithelial cells that cover the surface of the vilus have brush border of microvilli or microvilli to further increase the absorptive capability of the small intestines. Nutrients that pass through the epithelial cells covering the vilus are able to pass through the endothelial cells of the capillary walls and through the lacteals to enter the blood and the lymphatic circulatory system. From there, they are transported to the billions of cells in the body. So that is the small intestine where most of the absorption and digestion occurs. Let us now proceed to the large intestine. The function of large intestine are the absorption of water, the manufacturing and the absorption of certain vitamins, and the formation of expulsion of the feces. The large intestine is about 5 feet in length and averages of 2.5 inches in diameter. It is also referred to as the bowel. It is attached to the posterior wall of the abdomen by the extensions of visceral peritoneum known as the mesocolon. It is divided into 4 principal regions. The first one is the cecum, the pouch-like first part of the large intestine. The second one is the colon, or the largest part. The third one is the rectum, and the last one is the anal canal. The opening from the ileum of the small intestine into the cecum of the large intestine is a fold mucous membrane known as the ileocecal valve. This valve allows materials to pass through the small intestine into the large intestine. It's parang siya yung bridge nila. The cecum, or a blind pouch, one end is closed, is 2 to 3 inches long and hangs below the ileocecal valve, attached to the closed end of the cecum. It is twisted tube known as the vermiform appendix, 3 inches in length. The open end of the cecum merges with a long tube called the colon. The colon looks like a tube of consecutive pouches. The pouches are called the hystrix. The first part of the colon is known as the ascending colon. It arises on the right side of the abdomen, reaches the undersurface of the liver, and turns to the left and right colic flexure. The right colic flexure continues across the abdomen to the left side of the transverse colon. It then curves beneath the lower end of the spleen to the left side as the colic flexure. Next, it passes downward at the descending colon. The last part of the colon is called the sigmoid colon, where the colon joins the rectum. There are 3 mechanical movements occur in the large intestines. The first one is the haustral churning, the peristalsis at the rate of 3 to 12 contractions per minute, and the mass peristalsis. Food in the stomach initiates mass peristalsis, which is a strong peristaltic wave that begins in the middle of the transverse colon and drives its contents into the rectum. The rectum is the last 7 to 8 inches of the gastrointestinal tract. It is situated anterior to the sacrum and the coccyx. The terminal 1 inch of the rectum is called the anal canal. The mucous membrane of the anal canal is arranged in a series of longitudinal folds and called the anal columns that contain a network of arteries and veins. The opening of anal canal to the exterior is called the anus. It is guarded by internal sphincter of the smooth muscles and the external sphincter of the skeletal muscle. The absorption of water is an important function of the large intestine. Lastly, let us now proceed to the formation of the feces. By the time the chyme has remained in the large intestine for 3 to 10 hours, it is the semi-solid mass of material as a result of the absorption of water and is now called as the feces. The feces consists of water, inorganic salts, and epithelial cells from the mucosa of the tract that were scraped away as the chyme moved through the tract. In addition, the feces have bacteria, in particular Escherichia coli, a normal inhabitant of our intestine that feeds on undigested materials. The products of bacterial decomposition, such as gas and odor, which produce a rotten egg odor, and undigested parts of the food not attacked by a bacteria, are also found in the feces. The more fiber in the diet, the more undigestible materials in the feces and suffer the stool. When mass peristalsis pushes the fecal material into the rectum, it causes distension of the rectal walls. This triggers pressure-sensitive receptors in the wall of the rectum, sending an impulse to the nervous system, which initiates the reflex of defecation. Defecation is an act of emptying the rectum and its final activity of the digestive system. So that ends the process and parts and functions of the digestive system. Now, let us proceed to the diseases of digestive system. The first is hepatitis. Hepatitis is an inflammation of the liver caused by excessive alcohol consumption or by virus infection. If not treated, liver cells will die and are replaced by scar or tissue. The second one is the cirrhosis. Cirrhosis is a long-term degenerative disease of the liver in which the lobes are covered with fibrous connective tissue. The parenchyma of the liver degenerates and the lobules are filled with fat. Blood flow through the liver is obstructed. Cirrhosis is commonly the result of chronic alcohol abuse. Gallstones. Gallstones affect 20% of the population over 40 years of age and is important to prevent, and it's more prevalent in women than men. Cholesterol is secreted by the liver into the bile. When the cholesterol precipitates, gallbladder produces gallstones. Appendicitis. Appendicitis is an inflammation of the vermiform appendix caused by obstruction. Obstructions can be a hard mass of feces, a foreign body in a lumen or of appendix, and an adhesion or parasitic infection. Secretions from the appendix cannot get past the obstruction. The Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease is a chronic inflammatory bowel disease of unknown origin. It usually affects the ileum, the colon, or another part of the gastrointestinal tract. Disease segments are usually separated from normal bowel segments, giving the characteristic appearance of regional enteritis or skip lesions. Diverticulosis. Diverticulosis is the presence of pouch-like herniations through the muscular layer of the colon, particularly the sigmoid colon. It occurs most frequently in people over 50 years of age and may result to low-fiber diets. Next is the colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is cancer of the large intestine and the rectum. Hemorrhoids or piles are caused by the inflammation and enlargement of rectal veins. Thus, the initially contained within the anus are known as first-degree hemorrhoids. If this enlarge so that they can extend outward of the defecation, they can call the second-degree hemorrhoids. Diarrhea is one of the most common disease of the digestive system. Diarrhea literally means a flowing through. It occurs when the mucosa of the colon is unable to maintain its usual water level or water absorption and secretes larger than normal amounts of water, ions, and mucus. Thrush. A thrush is a fungal infection of the tissues of the mouth caused by Candida albicans. It can also infect the skin, intestines, and the vagina of the woman. In the mouth, it's called the oral candidiasis. Food poisoning. Food poisoning is caused by the digestion of food contaminated with bacteria, salmonella, resulting in a salmonellosis. Tapeworm infections. Tapeworm infections are caused by the ingesting the larval forms of various tapeworms in improperly cooked pork, beef, or freshwater fish. Human tapeworms can range the size of 3 feet to 60 feet. They live in the small intestine attached by a head structure called scolex with hooks and suckers. Pancreatitis or pancreatitis. Pancreatitis is an inflammation of pancreas caused by the damage to the organ due to alcohol abuse, infectious disease, or drugs. The condition can be acute or chronic. Gastritis. Gastritis is an inflammation of the stomach lining that occurs after a certain food, producing discomfort, nausea, and vomiting. It can be caused by food allergens, certain drugs, or bacterial or viral infections, or chemical toxins. Chronic gastritis is indicative of a disease condition like stomach ulcers or cancer. Gastroesophageal reflux disease. Gastroesophageal, the reflux disease or the GERD, it is caused by stomach contents going back into the esophagus due to weakening or incompetency of the lower esophageal sphincter. Since the gastric juice is high in hydrochloric acid, this causes burning sensation in the esophagus, commonly referred to as heartburn. Consistent episode of GERD may lead to severe damage of esophageal lining. Gastric cancer. Gastric or stomach cancer produces gastric tumors called adenocarcinomas. The exact cause is unknown. However, dietary factors that have been implicated include nitrates as preservatives in food, smoked or salted meats and fish, and in the ingestion of moldy foods. Infection with the bacterium Heliobacter pylori has also been implicated. Symptoms include chronic discomfort, a loss of appetite with developing anorexia, difficulty in eating, weight loss, and developing anemia. Next is the pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is an uncommon but deadly cancer. Individuals diagnosed with this are rarely live for more than 1 year. It occurs more often in men than in women. It occurs more often in industrial areas, among smokers, people with diabetes, and individuals exposed to polychlorinated biphenyl compounds. The oral cancer. Oral cancer is the malignancy found either in mouth or lips that can occur after the age of 60. It occurs more frequently in men than in women. Contributing factors include smoking, the use of chewing tobacco, poor oral hygiene, alcoholism, and even poor fitting dentures. So that's end our discussion about the digestive system, the processes of digestive system, the parts and functions of the digestive system, and the diseases of digestive system. Thank you for listening.